welcome back to segment 2 of show 17 of HipMojo. So last week, you confirmed that you were crazy because we were talking about something else. And you happened to say that the Google guys, Sergey Brin and Larry Page, are more indispensable to...
This makes me crazy.
No, hold on. To Facebook's CEO, Mark Zuckerberg. Let me just get one thing straight. Because otherwise, people are going to be like, yeah, comparing apples to oranges. Are you talking about 2011 Facebook, which is, let's say, 6 years old, still developing its business model to some extent, although it's printing money now, versus Google in 2011, which is like a 15-year-old company? Are you comparing the timeline, or are you saying where Google was as a 5, 6, 7-year-old company? Because that does make a bit of a difference, but you're crazy either way, because I think this is like really black and white. But
I'm talking specifically about the integrity of their main respective products, as well as their company culture. The best analogy I can draw, and this is terrible bringing it up, but when Steve Jobs died, everyone is like, oh my God, what is going to happen to Apple? You know, I just think that it would be a bigger deal for Google if Larry Page and Sergey Brin died in a plane crash than it would be for Facebook if Mark Zuckerberg, I don't know, got food poisoning from bad sushi.
Okay, wait. Here's the thing. Google's founders, unlike Facebook's founder, they really did patent something, Backrub, of which their PhD at Stanford was about the search engine, and based on how many links go to another search engine, that determines how popular it was. It was, when I was working in search in 2000, I was hired to do I was hired to basically help the CEO with whatever he needed. And I did a competitive landscape, and I went through them all, and I was like, same crappy results, same crappy results, same crappy results. I come to Google, and I was like, circled it, and I was like, okay, you want to know who your competitor really is? It's Google. They have the best search results, bar none. Nobody knew what the business model would be in 2000. So Overture, formerly called GoTo, was doing the pay-per-click. They didn't have organic search. It was just a pay-per-click, right? So you search for Madrid, you got Madrid airfare. It was paid results. Google was at the other end of the spectrum, which was organic results. You search for Madrid and the most inbound links to a given site. I don't doubt that the Google guys did that, and that is huge, whereas you could argue, allegedly, that Mark Zuckerberg basically stole a bunch of ideas. I get that. We're not disputing that.
We're not even talking about that.
No, but I get that. But I'm saying after that, Google fell ass backwards into the pay-per-click model because what? The dot-com market blew up. The advertising market dried up. Banners, they never wanted to run them, but they sort of died. So they had no choice but to say, here's this new model that we're basically stealing from Overture, which they had to pay a bunch to settle the lawsuit. So the business basically was, yeah, a great product. And then, you know, the Omid Kordestani was like the senior VP of BizDev. He sort of built the business side. And then everybody at Google is this genius where they've basically had like a golden goose that has just kept laying these beautiful eggs. And sure, now they can buy YouTube, buy Android, and invest. But if today, or pretty much any time after the PhD project was completed, if Larry Page and Sergey Brin decide to go sit on a beach, sell coconuts, Google goes on. Google does not miss a beat. Mark Zuckerberg, however, yes, he basically allegedly stole an idea. And you could argue that he's made a lot of mistakes like Beacon, and he could care less about privacy, and I get that. But if Mark Zuckerberg is not there to hit a wall, try different things, Facebook would not have crushed MySpace. Facebook would have probably been crushed by Twitter or Google in one way or another. Mark Zuckerberg's big balls are the reason why Facebook is what it is. So if you remove him...
Mark Zuckerberg flip-flops too often. I just don't see him as being the visionary that Larry Page and Sergey Brin have been for Google. And you know, okay, fine, Google isn't the sexy media darling it was years ago. Now Facebook is.
Twitter, even, I'd argue.
Yeah. And you know, whether or not Google is still one of the big web companies in 5 years is probably a flip of the coin. But I think if Larry Page and Sergey Brin, you know, went to sell coconuts on the beach tomorrow, they would have zero chance of continuing to be relevant.
Because they weren't doing anything. They were basically the equivalent of the chief yahoos at Google when Eric Schmidt was running it. And then for whatever reason, you know, at first you're grateful for the older guy to come run your company, and then you're like, oh, this guy is the reason why we're not as sexy as Facebook, so let's take Eric in the back and put a gun to his head. I'll say this about the Google guys. Like, I think it's great that Larry's back, and Larry could become, as a CEO, and I think Larry could become the next Steve Jobs. Time will tell. But they weren't doing anything in terms of day-to-day. They were the visionary guys, which basically means you're sitting there, smoking a crack pipe
how much
if you
did
want
Steve
to.
Jobs do day from day? He like got up, did these awesome
No, he did everything.
keynotes.
He basically shat on every employee that didn't do what he wanted them to do. He basically made sure that the products were according to his like crazy ass spec and
well, that's
whatever.
what I mean. It's
Larry,
making sure
they didn't do that. YouTube is run by Salar.
Yes, I know, but their core product.
Android is run by Andy Rubin. I mean, that's my point. They're not actually in charge of anything, and the money keeps coming from AdSense and AdWords.
All their successful products, and don't get me wrong, there's been tons of failure, Buzzwave, the list goes on, but there's all their successful products have revolved around their core, and that's search. You know, YouTube made sense because it guaranteed they would always be #1 in search, but all their successes are still guided by that original vision to like index the world's entire information to give the users the best possible
but that's my point. It
result.
has not changed. First of all, one of the lone...
You only need a good... Okay, this is a huge generalization. You only need a good idea once. Then you got to make sure that the good idea doesn't get compromised day after day after day.
Okay,
but they've been able to do that. You know what? Zuckerberg doesn't have that integrity. He doesn't...
Well, this is not who has most integrity.
He's like, oh, I got this new feature. You all hate it. Okay, we'll take it away.
But hold on. That's why I started off by saying who is more indispensable. We are not talking about integrity. If this was about integrity, Sergey Brin and Larry Page would destroy Mark Zuckerberg before the first
Product integrity is important here.
We're not talking about... No, there's a difference between integrity and product integrity. We're not talking about either.
Not in this case. Not when you live and breathe and eat the product you created.
For the record, I am the biggest bull of Google. I think all this talk about Google being dead is unfair, because they're not. But I also think it's unfair that we tell to Google, why do you keep experimenting with Buzz and Wave and all this crap that doesn't go anywhere? I'll tell you why, because then if they become the typical innovator's dilemma, they just sit there on search and they don't do anything else. So I actually commend them when they try, even when they fail. And I think they have some of the best products out there. I pretty much use Google more than any other site. I'm starting to use Twitter quite a bit, but I'm just saying I'm on Google more than any other site. I used to spend a lot of time on Yahoo. But that was not the discussion. The discussion was, if Sergey and Larry go retire, let's not use deadly crashes here. Sergey and Larry go retire. And they say, we just want to go sit in a rainforest and meditate and give all of our money to charity. Google will continue to be the same. Whereas if Mark Zuckerberg's not there, the first time that Facebook comes across a dilemma, should we rape users' privacy, yes or no? He's like, obviously yes. It could be a bad decision. It could be a lack of integrity. He could be the devil incarnate for we care. But I'm just saying, if Mark Zuckerberg is not there, Facebook will deteriorate at a much faster rate.
No, I think Facebook is on a very natural evolution path. I think Mark Zuckerberg is a big of a putz. If he was so brilliant, he wouldn't screw up in front of the media so often. But like, really, I think he is just announcing and unrolling features that people who work for him or who are backing him are pushing for. I don't think he's as visionary that everyone makes him out to be.
Let's just draw a little parallel. Wouldn't you agree that Mark Zuckerberg is basically like Bill Gates 2.0? Like, Paul Allen leaves Microsoft, the company goes on to be better and stronger than ever. But if Bill Gates leaves in 1990, Microsoft would be a footnote. It takes a certain kind of crazy, driven, unethical person to be that successful. So I'm just saying...
You're saying that Zuckerberg's, why he's such a linchpin is because he has no scruples?
I think he has some scruples, but his moral compass is very different.
He kills goats with his bare hands.
Yeah,
he's not a man with a lot of...
No, but that's what I'm saying. This was not about integrity. It was not about character. This was simply remove one of the sort of heads of state. Who's going to suffer the most? I'm not convinced here. I'm not sold.
All I meant by the
integrity And for the record, I respect Google and their founders a lot more. But I'm just saying, if they were to leave, they've hired a certain way. Like the fact that they only hire A students or the fact that they have a certain moral compass, that has filtered down. Like I spoke to a guy that his company was acquired by Google, and he goes, at Google, everyone is not just some kind of genius PhD. They also have some other thing. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, some guy could be a PhD, but he also played piano at the age of 5. Some other guy could be like the world's best juggler. So he's like, everybody is this super, super duper talented person. So they have only hired A people. They've sort of instilled a certain way. I'm not saying, think of the relative lack of people who have left Google that have gone on to build actual companies. Like I think Uyala, that's one group.
Or have gone to Facebook.
Yeah, or they've gone, but that's my point. The kind of people that Google usually hires are not crazy founders. But that's a different kind of personality. But I just think Google, if the top guys are not there, there's a certain ethos in the company that will still continue. Facebook, remove Mark, you're going to get crazy infighting and politics and whatever, and I'm just saying that company goes away. I'm not commenting that one is better than the other. I'm just saying...
I think Zuckerberg's the man the same way George W. Bush was the man, and he had Cheney and a bunch of other people pulling his strings. I'm not saying that things wouldn't deteriorate into infighting. I'm just saying the Facebook vision, I'm not quite convinced, is solely his own. That's all.
Of course it wasn't. Have you seen The Social Network? We're going to take a short break, come back with Lightning Round.